thought about showing just a little video. But anyway, many years ago, I don't think even CF teams were as conscious about infection control as how we are nowadays. And what I've learned over the years is that you have to become sort of OCD about it for it to happen the way it has to. And even nowadays, it's really hard to find that there is absolute, compliance with policies. And if you look at any hospitalization, for whatever disease or whatever condition, you're always going to find little cracks. A medication not given on time, or some procedure that wasn't done the right way. So we basically all need to be vigilant about every single aspect of what we do. So I don't know if when you've had a hospitalization and somebody comes in with a tray of pills, if you check, is that the right pill or not? I mean, I know we put a lot of faith on the people that take care of us, but believe me, we're very conscious about this, and we've sensitized people to the fact that they shouldn't feel offended or put off or whatever because someone says, have you washed your hands? And one of the things that we've been trying to sensitize people about, that it's not just important, but you need to demonstrate it, do a little bit of a show and do it like this, exaggerate, to reassure the person on the other end that not necessarily that you're doing it, but that you're sensitized to it. And you respect very much their concern for being in a safe environment. But, it's a waste. You think we're not doing it, we're not there yet, we need to keep doing it, but you also need to help us out by being vocal. Because we have sensitized people to the fact that, it's important and we all need to be vigilant about it and not be offended when people catch you with dirty hands. Because throughout, it's not funny, throughout the hospital, we put a lot of effort sensitizing people, not just for CF. To the ICUs, it's become a mantra. In the NICU, even the cleaning people. It's happened to me once. Someone was swiping the floor and came and pulled me and said, I didn't see you washing your hands. So when you get to that point, then you're there. Because absolutely everyone knows about it. And I think for CF, we'll be there when the valet parking guy asks if you wash your hands. Or almost there.
And the mask.
And the mask. Okay, so I wanted to share a few thoughts about for which we have the least amount of evidence, which is what to do when you're outside of our realm. If we were so obsessive about the hospital and the clinic, it's because, well, we used to say kids acquire infections from the environment, but many decades ago, a lot of evidence came up that, well, it's not necessarily the environment, some of the bad things were really given into them by coming and being exposed to a clinic or hospital setting. So for the last 10 years or so, there's been a ton of effort in implementing all these policies so that it becomes back to where we started. They are catching things from the environment, not from the clinic or the hospitals. And I think we've been very successful at that because we haven't had major outbreaks or noticeable transmission events for a real long time. So now we go back to, okay, what about the environment? And unfortunately, it's something where we have very little evidence. I need to start by, I always like to put little bits of info that will be helpful with John's here, or educate you about other things. So this is what the evolution of life on planet Earth is all about, okay? So it goes back about 3 million years is when life started on planet Earth. And the very first recognizable life forms were germs. So germs have a huge advantage over us because they have been on this planet for 4 billion years. And human beings are on the margin here. We go back, maybe a couple billion years, Lucy, right? So bacteria are highly adapted, are extremely smart, and there's a lot of diversity when it comes to the different microbes that are surrounding us right now. So it's not just being out in the jar that exposes you to bacteria. They're all around us. They're very well adapted to it's more like this is their planet. We're visitors. So when you look at the genetic diversity, meaning if you look at DNA and how many genes and all that, most of the diversity is bacteria. And that simply has over billions of years, giving them a lot of evolutionary adaptation, not just to the planet, but everything else that has come along the way. So there was a really interesting study that was publicized on the Stanford magazine a year or two ago, where they look at probably one of the most toxic, polluted places that you can imagine is Lake Mono. There's a ton of arsenic and cyanide and really bad stuff on the water and on the mud around that lake. And they were able to find living organisms there, meaning germs that have adapted to a highly polluted, toxic environment, and they have learned how to make metabolites, meaning how to make food out of things that will kill you, just by getting close to them. And you know, we know that there are bacteria like the cepacia germ that Mimi mentioned that have learned how to make sugar, meaning make food out of these. You know what this is? That's ceftazidime. It's one of the antibiotics that we give to kids with CF. Okay, so the germs are very smart. They learn how to get around the things that are problematic to them. And you know, it's not surprising to finding on, well, common household things and places like showers. Showers are full of pseudomonas, no matter what you do about it. Okay? And you know, if I were to put my hand on, because this has been done by the way, there are a couple of really cool studies from the 70s where they took giant petri dishes with gel and the people put their palm in there, and then they put it on an incubator for 2 days, pull it out, and there was this jelly of germs that had exactly the same layout as the palm print. Okay? And that happens even after hand washing that is not as careful and detailed as what Mimi described. So that's why, you know, most of us nowadays push more towards what we call not hand washing but hand disinfection, which is using the alcohol wraps, because that's much more effective at getting your hands free from germs. So again, you know, these guys, the way I see it, own the planet. We're sort of busy. We need to find ways of getting along with them. With all this, you know, what I'm trying to sensitize is about the fact that, you know, we live surrounded by these things. So it's pretty much close to impossible to be absolutely germ-free. Okay? If I do a bronchoscopy test on all of you right now, and I use the right molecular tools, and we did that study at Stanford. It was published last year. We were one of the first to show that, you know, on absolutely everyone, you're going to find germs down in the lungs. Okay? And it's because we're breathing in from the environment. Most of it, yes, that's why you have a nose with all those little sinus cavities and hairs and cilia. Most of it is filtered, but a lot of it is going to make it down into the depths of your airways. Now, what sets apart CF from non-CF is that in a lung that doesn't have CF, because of all those brushes and fluids and mucus that Dr. Rowe showed, those things that are sort of sweeping, because it's a sweeping effect, in your airway are constantly moving those germs out of the way. This is a very dynamic process. You breathe the germs in, but they're swiped out right away. Okay? As opposed to CF, where things are not really swiped out, they just stay down there. So this is the classic pattern that we've seen when it comes to infections in CF. And the pattern keeps repeating itself. If you notice, this is from 2006. And if I show you the graph from 2011, which is the last one, I haven't updated it because it looks pretty much the same. And if I show you the graph from the 1990s, it looks exactly the same. Some of the names have changed because, well, we have added a few things that we're watching for, like MRSA, we used not to even test for it 10 years ago. But the pattern is sort of stayed the same, particularly when it comes to the blue line, red line, and green line. Those are the common guys. Staphylococcus, H flu, we see them very early on, and then as the patients age, as they get to their teen years particularly, what we see is an emergence of the Pseudomonas as the predominant germ. And what we also know is that, well, the longer the Pseudomonas stays down in the lung, adapts to it, and starts fighting out not only what the lungs are trying to do against it, but also what we are trying to do about it, with antibiotics, they will become highly adaptive. And this is a study from the Wisconsin newborn screening program, which has gone back 2 decades. So they have 20 years of information on having watched kids very closely over time. And what you see here is, you know, as time goes by, almost everybody ends up with Pseudomonas. So it's really hard to avoid completely. But what we know is that there are some people that are able to stay away from it. And nowadays there is an emerging concept that, well, probably what helps is to, number one, monitor very closely so you can catch it as early as possible from the time when it came into your lungs. And then if you apply the right antibiotic strategy, being aggressive with antibiotics, you can really delay the chronicity of that infection, if not make it go away completely. Because we know that some of those germs are going to lead into a decline in the pulmonary function. So obviously, you know, it'd be great if, like these guys, right, they're saying, what a breakthrough. We bred the first germ that we can attack with everyday household objects. And you like to take like a broom or a baseball bat and keep them away. We cannot do that. So obviously, an ounce of prevention is much better than hundreds of milligrams of Toby, right? So how we can stay away from it? Again, you know, we're really surrounded by them, and there are all these things out there of, you know, and I don't know, you probably don't know all of these. Don't be surprised. My kid had a lot of trouble in his early years with recurring strep, so I went through some of these. See if I could get rid of the strep trouble. You probably heard some of these things, right? Throw away the toothbrush, change it every week. Don't let the kid flush the toilet. When you flush the toilet, kind of look the other way and then wash your hands. Don't swim on a lake. Don't swim on a swimming pool. Stay away from sick people. Spray bleach everywhere. Bleach your tub and your shower every day, week, month. Don't go to church in the winter. I mean, the list is really long. And the problem is that there's no evidence behind any of this working because, again, you know, we live in an environment that is pretty much full of germs. So what is it that helps? You know, well, we need to use common sense, obviously, and here's where I get into the movie part. You know, when I see things that don't make sense and look more urban myths, I go to these guys. I don't know if you've seen the Mythbusters. They truly get kids into science.
Yes.
So I wanted to show you one of the best, in my opinion, shows that they put together when they were looking at all these issues of, you know, germs and germophobia and the flu and what to do about it. So I'm going to show just two little snippets. But basically, if you find this episode, it's really cool because they created an artificial runny nose on one of the characters. And his runny nose was tagged with a fluorescent marker. Okay, so you think about it as the fluorescent marker was the RSV germ. Okay, and here they're going to show, they basically invited some of the people from the show, and I think they're the ones who are the ones who write the script, whatever, to come to a party. Okay, and pay attention. I don't think the sound is going to show, but just pay attention to what people do. Okay, and see if we can pick on some themes here.
Oh no. Oh, yeah.
He's so generous.
he didn't sneeze even once.
Whoa.
And this guy knew that he was going to try to split. So there's a lot of subconscious stuff that we don't even notice. But now, I'm going to skip a lot of stuff here. But they did like an infection control deal. And I highly recommend you look at the show. But I want you to notice what he's going to do now and what he's...
Clean.
Anyway, so, and this kind of stuff, has been done in hospital settings many times. And repeatedly, it's very obvious that it's really hard to keep something fully contained. And that's in the hospital setting. Now think about it at home. Your kids go to school, they go to parties, they meet friends, and kids get runny noses, and you see what happens with a runny nose, and even with people that know that that's happening. So, you could become as obsessed as you want with this. But the truth is that, just the common sense stuff is still what takes you the longest way. And hand hygiene is a big one. And I like to call it more than hand hygiene, hand disinfection. And that's why walking around with the little Purell containers is a great idea. That takes you a long way. Because the other thing to remember, if you notice, all of the guys that were lighting up and were glowing, they were glowing on their hands, they were glowing on their clothes, maybe on their back, but nothing on their face, right? And for germs to spread from respiratory viruses all the way up to Pseudomonas and even worse things, a lot of them make it into your system when you touch your mucosal surfaces, meaning your nose and your mouth. So as far as those dirty glowing hands don't touch things that are going to come in contact with your mucosal surfaces, you're going to be in good shape, okay? Even if you forget to clean or whatever. So one of the things that I skip and I didn't show there is that they also look at the table. And yes, there were a bunch of glasses that were glowing and forks and all those things. Well, those things, if they come to your mouth or your nose, that's where the germs are finally going to make it inside. Okay? So you cannot make things fully germ-free. You need to be settled for the fact that that's close to impossible. But what you could do is keep things from making it inside the lungs of a kid with CF. And one of the things that helps the most is to make sure, particularly for the little kids, the babies, the toddlers, the preschoolers is that, whatever is going to come into contact with their mouths, meaning eating, has to be just their own stuff. And you need to watch it and maybe be a little, that's the stuff that is worthwhile being paranoid about. Including pacifiers and nipples for the bottles and food utensils. And there, again, things that is better to start early to teach the kids to be a little watchful about it, particularly when it comes to very simple things like soda cans and silverware and dinnerware. Because at some point you're going to lose a little bit of control as to what is it that comes in contact with it, meaning the school lunchroom. So you need to early on teach them on, yes, sharing is good, it's important, it's good to be a good citizen, but there are some ground rules that we need to always be very mindful of, which is don't share your drink, don't share your CP bottle or whatever, don't share your soda cans, don't share your food. Because oftentimes it's going to be very hard to tell when is it that you're across someone who's sick. You see, if there's someone who's sneezing big time and has a bad cough, it's very easy to tell, all right, I need to stay away from it. But that's going to be the least likely case scenario. I think most people nowadays, because of all the scares with that, and that has helped, bear flu, swine flu, coronavirus, and SARS, have made people a little more conscious about spread of germs, and movies like Infection and Contagion. What was the name of there are a couple books. The Hot Zone have made the general public more aware about that things spread and you're exposed to them, and sometimes you don't know about it. So that helps because people are a little more watchful about the fact that yes, things can spread. But it's also the other point on this is a two-way street. Things got better when also the guy who was quote unquote sick started watching what he was doing. And I think hopefully, little by little, we're educating the community at large that, certain things are, particularly if you're going to go into a social type of setting, you need to be very mindful of those who are going to be with you. So, teaching and providing good education to, your loved ones and all the ones that participate on not just your family life, but your social life is also important. Making people mindful of, well, if you have the flu, don't come home to visit. And it's not that it's like when you're saying, how can I ask someone to wash their hands when they're in the hospital? It's the same thing. You need to, in a very tactful way, find a way of making people aware and making them know that it's not that you're a huge paranoid, but that, well, you want to be protected. And not just of your kid, but also of yourself, because that's how these infections spread. Winter time is the respiratory season, not because cold weather is what makes people get sick, or cold weather is what makes the germs strong. It's simply that cold weather makes us be more indoors and be more crowded. Okay? And that's what truly makes the respiratory season be the respiratory season. If you go to countries that don't have as much seasonality as we have in the northern hemisphere, the respiratory season doesn't truly exist as we know it. They have waves that are more dependent on the rains, and they're also more dependent on, what time of the year you are when it comes to holidays. And there are many countries where, again, the season is the same year long, but the respiratory season spikes when school starts, because kids are finally getting all together again in classrooms, or when they have big holidays, because everybody gets together in church. So again, it's more us being, well, social animals, and we like to crowd what really helps the germs spread. So again, there's no way to absolutely avoid it, but there are ways of containing it and making a more controllable situation, but it's more providing education and always giving that sort of in a tactful way, that message of, well, if you're sick, don't come home, don't do close contact, and if you if you were drinking from that glass, don't pass it around, keep it for yourself. Which not only helps for CF, but will help all of us, particularly when it comes to winter season. So I'd like to open it to questions and ideas and comments.
You scared me with the shower thing. It's full of pseudomonas. How do we avoid that?
Well, no, it's going to be in the running water no matter what.
It's the water?
Oh yeah. I mean,
It's
water
everywhere.
is everywhere.
Don't drink water.
potable water, even in the bottles, does have stuff. Okay? All of the standards, particularly when it comes to water out of the tap, are to meet